always looked for ways and means to defame India. And a reliable ally in this process has been the America-based US Commission on International Religious Freedom, more commonly known as the USCIRF. The lobby in India leaned on this organization endlessly. But has the anti-India lobby had a larger nexus, association? Today, Republic's global investigation team blows the lid off. Meet Nadine Mainza, the USCIRF chair. She was also the chairman of the Hardwired Global, where Professor Angana Chatterjee happens to be an advisor. Interestingly, she is reported to be among the regulars at conferences that ISI agent Dr. Ghulam Nabi Fai used to organize using money from the ISI. But that is not where it stops. That's where it begins. Back to USCIRF Chair Nadine. The lobbying firm Fidelis Government Relations is run by Terry G. Allen, a man who worked at Patriot Voices. The sitting USCIRF chair, Nadine, is the president of Patriot Voices. The same lobbying firm was allegedly hired by a known anti-India organization, the IAMC, in the past. Now meet Harrison Akins, a former policy analyst at USCIRF. This man gloats about being mentored by Akbar Ahmed, who's former Pakistan High Commissioner. The direct link to Pakistan emerges. And then there are commissioners at the USCIRF who have been attached to George Soros-linked organizations. The same George Soros who said this.
The biggest and most frightening setback occurred in India, where the democratically elected Narendra Modi created a Hindu nationalist state, imposing punitive measures on Kashmir, a semi-autonomous Muslim region, and threatening to deprive millions of Muslims of their citizenship.
The web of connections fall apart. Data available in open source point towards an IAMC connection. If the IAMC sounds familiar, it is because this was the organization that spread fake news on the Ghaziabad video. And because the IAMC was booked under the UAPA for allegedly sharing fake photos and videos of a mosque burning in Tripura on social media.
Indian American Muslim Council नाम दिया हुआ है, जिसका लिंक की सिमी से भी है, को के मंच से भारत बैशिंग ब्रिगेड का जो मोदी बैशिंग की सनक है, वो भारत बैशिंग की साजिश बनी है.
Interestingly, the IAMC seems to be the USCIRF's go-to destination and platform to deliver talks. There are several mysterious links of the IAMC, links which raise questions and links which expose the real intent of groups like the IAMC. For example, former founder of SIMI was at an IAMC event, a former founder of SIMI, a banned organization. Not just that, people who are linked with IAMC, for example, Sheikh Ubaid is allegedly linked to the ICNA, ICNA linked to the Jamaat-e-Islami in Pakistan, and even Al-Qaeda linked Asim Ghafoor. Al-Qaeda linked Asim Ghafoor reportedly spoke at an IAMC event. So it all comes down to this. How can data and analysis by the USCIRF be trusted? Is the USCIRF an impartial organization? Is there an anti-India taint on this US-based organization? Is the USCIRF directly or indirectly compromised? Are all the reports of the USCIRF a result of lobbying? Were anti-India reports crafted for a price? And is there a large global web of organizations working to build a global narrative against India? A Republic Network exclusive.
Thank you so much, Narendran. There, big, explosive story coming out of how India is being targeted, its image being tarnished in a planned manner by lobbies, by motivated individuals and organizations working in a web to isolate India in the minds of the woke world perhaps, but they will not succeed. Joining me on the debate, on the discussion, on the story, along with Niranjan, guests from New Delhi, Adwaita Kala, author and writer, Saurabh Shukla, editor-in-chief of News Mobile, live from Delhi. Also Sanjay Dixit, author, columnist and former IS officer, live from Jaipur. Let me begin with Adwaita Kala. Adwaita, you were listening to the story and the narration by Niranjan of the web of connections that works behind the scenes and many times out in the open as well, aimed at compromising and bringing down image of India in the world by targeting its human rights record, sometimes creating it, many times actually creating a perception that everything is not right in India, that it's not a rule-based society, people don't follow rule of law, the system does not follow rule of law. I mean, for how long can we tolerate this, Adwaita?
You know, I think the biggest problem that this lobby has is that we are a democracy. If we had not been a democracy, we would have seen some sort of overt, and a hard regime change action take place. The issue for this lobby is the fact that we're a democracy. We have been here for the last 75 years. We have a popularly elected prime minister who's extremely well liked and is growing from strength to strength and is frankly impossible to remove because he has the trust of the Indian people. Now, in a situation like that being the reality of the circumstances, what can this lobby do? They can't certainly not attack another democracy militarily, because that would be unacceptable and would be condemned in no uncertain measures. So they begin this campaign of propaganda, of low-intensity communal flash-ups being covered widely as forms of oppression, no matter who is at fault, creating a narrative that there is a systematic discrimination that is taking place, that we're heading towards genocide. So Abhishek, if you notice the recent narrative, I tracked this closely, the recent narrative, along with, let me add, people from your fraternity, from the media fraternity, who are saying there is a genocide coming up. Now, how likely the term genocide is being thrown around just for this particular agenda?
Who are they? Aren't they part of the lobby, my fraternity?
Very much so, very much so. Part of the lobby, traveling abroad, all of that is there for everybody to see.
If I can add here, Abhishek. Yeah.
Saurabh.
No, let Niranjan let Niranjan get into this. Niranjan wanted a question.
Saurabh can come in. Saurabh knows exactly what my question is going to be. But you look at the tweets and retweets, right? I mean, it's almost like a pattern. And look at the links. There are dubious links that this US government body, it's a US government body. And that's why it's even more alarming. And they have a record. They have a record of a hijab on India almost every year. They do it consistently. That's a strike rate. Saurabh.
I'll tell you what, Niranjan, despite all the efforts, as Adwaita was also rightly saying, by this lobby, the challenge for them has been that India-US relation has grown from strength to strength under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. You saw what the relationship was with the previous Republican regime and the kind of welcome the Prime Minister received when a Democrat president is there under Joe Biden. So the problem with the lobby is they've been trying to, damage India's democratic traditions, the fact that there is a democratically elected government. And, if you saw what did External Affairs Minister Jaishankar say recently, there are aberrations, there are contradictions in every country. And this lobby should also realize that this is an India which will stand tall and it will have its democratic ethos because there are checks and balances in India, and India is the only country, if you see, you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the Pakistani lobbies. They've been working very hard because you see the state, what Pakistan is into. No prime minister has completed a term there. And India, since 1947, whichever government has had office, there has been a great democratic transition. This is the strength of India. This is the problem these lobbies have because they cannot hate India. See the IMF's prediction. When every country is going down, despite a global slowdown, India's statistics tell you that we are on a turnaround. So these are stories which are being celebrated globally And this is a challenge this lobby has. And I don't see anything getting impacted because US government, and I study bilateral relations very closely, Indo-US relations very closely. We are gaining from strength to strength, and these organizations will not have any impact on the robust relationship that we have with the US today, which is a very big strategic partnership that we have.
But they like to make a lot of noise and they like to spread negativity. I want to go to Sanjay Dixit, but Sanjay, I'll show you a web graphic. It's a cycle, right? I want to show that full frame. Let me go full frame to that web, which sort of explains the story in context. In case you're watching this broadcast, there is a US body called the USCIRF, right? They call themselves a rights body. Now look at the kind of links that they have, right? You have Nadine Mainza, who's a USCIRF chair, who's linked to Professor Angana Chatterjee, who is linked to ISI agent, which UK has said and confirmed and admitted that Ghulam Nabi Fai took money from Pakistan's ISI, who is linked to Terry Allen Fidelis government relations, who's then linked to IAMC, this dubious organization that likes to call frustrated Indians to sort of badmouth India. And then you have this Harrison Akins, former policy analyst at the USCIRF, who's linked to a former Pakistan High Commissioner in the UK. And then you have Anurima Bhargava, who's a commissioner at the USCIRF, who's linked to government fellow at Open Society Foundations, which is linked to George Soros, who we know is a Modi beta, likes to badmouth India, calls India and Indian government Hindu nationalist and God knows what else, right? So we know the tentacles that these people have and the kind of damage they want to cause. Sanjay, so can any report or anything that these such groups like USCIRF publish, right, can they be credible at all?
See, there's a very clear web of regime change operation institutions in the US. One of them is USCIRF, and the others are, of course, there's a very fancy name called the what is called the National Endowment for Democracy, of which Victoria Nuland was a long time person involved. Also, this IAMC, and of course, on the other side, you have George Soros. And George Soros and Victoria Nuland, you know very well what role they have played in the regime change operations in Ukraine, and how they brought about this Zelensky and all the things that happened with Russia. Anyway, as far as the IAMC is concerned, its links are only too prominent. It is linked to what is called this Rashid Ahmad is linked to ICNA, which is a front for Pakistan's Jamaat-e-Islami. And the other one, the earlier ones, Sheikh Ubaid and all that, they were in with IAMANA, that is the medical association, which was also accused in a COVID fundraise fraud. So you have all these people, and then another member is linked directly to Taliban. So this is basically an ISI operation in which they have got all kind of people. They've got Jamaat-e-Islami. They've also got Muslim Brotherhood. All of these people are involved, and their basic job is to malign India. And of course, you've already shown the connection to the USCIRF. So USCIRF is very cozily placed with both IAMC, which is an India-baiting organization, and George Soros, who is an India-baiting individual. So the loop is complete. The idea is that because you cannot remove Narendra Modi and you cannot damage Indian democracy in the normal way, you have an opposition like Congress, which is totally incapable of defeating the BJP and Narendra Modi. So go about in this roundabout fashion and try the same things that you tried in Ukraine. But bad luck, they are not going to succeed in India, very India is not Ukraine. As simple as that. And another thing that I want to say very assertively, if you give me 1 minute, please, half a minute, that is that we should completely ignore USCIRF and go by what the Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar recently asserted in the US, and that said that, okay, if they have, the US has human rights concern about us, then we also have human rights concern. So USCIRF, I think it will be a good idea to have an Indian Council of International Religious Freedom and judge the US and others on race issues, on religion issues ourselves. Why be on the receiving end all the time?
Well, Sanjay Dixit, you are not known to mince words. Good that you bring in this Pakistan angle. Now, this Burma task force, for example, goes under the name of Justice for All and founded by Abdul Malik Mujahid, who's a Pakistani origin guy. Then you have ICNA connect with a Pakistani Navy officer, former Pakistani Navy officer, settled in the United States. Then you have JFA hosting Ghulam Nabi Fai. I had myself confronted Ghulam Nabi Fai.
Yes.
ISI activist, essentially a mole of the ISI in the United States, working on the Khalistani agenda, working on the Kashmir agenda of ISI. Now, the Indian Origin Muslim Council, Indian American Muslim Council, they go with a very innocuous name of people associated with India, irrespective of their, Muslims, I should not be saying irrespective of the community, Muslims with origin in India. But then the web of connections through the ICNA, through the JFA, through the Burma Task Force, it broadens and goes into the hands of Pakistani agents. Is this aspect which needs further investigated perhaps by our own agencies? Saurabh?
Absolutely. Abhishek, you were there. Absolutely. What you said, Pakistanis have been working overtime because they know that they've lost the plot. They know, and the ISI realizes that they have to mount. This is called something called a cyber war that they've been trying to mount. And I'll tell you another thing, that they have been backed, by China as well. Because, the challenge is they have not been able to take on India, the Pakistanis militarily. They've tried terrorism, which has also been defeated now. So they obviously want to get some of these backers, and the funding obviously is coming from China as well. And I can tell you another thing. This is, in light of these revelations, India must take this up with US strongly. You were there at the time when Prime Minister Modi's visit happened to Washington, and we have agreed to, share information on intelligence matters, on matters which impinge upon national security of each other, a country. And India must raise this issue, because at the end of the day, these lobbies are not only harming the relationship that India has with the US, they're also harming the cause of the democratic agenda that we have in Indo-Pacific at the level of Quad. So India must take this up very strongly with the US, because these lobbies are harming a relationship and also undermining a democratically elected government. Abhishek.
Right.
There are a few questions, Abhishek, a few questions, and then we'll take a short break. And I request, Sanjay, Saurabh, and Adwaita to stay with us. Some of the questions some of the obvious questions, I should say, the obvious questions that come to our mind. I'm going to play those questions full frame. And just think about it. Think about these questions as we hit a short break, right? How can data and analysis by this USCIRF be trusted? Given the links that we've just exposed, the Pakistan, the deep links of the ISI and the different web that is emerging, is the USCIRF an impartial organization? Can it be called an impartial organization that has any say on India's rights record? Is there an anti-India taint on this US-based organization? Is the USCIRF directly or indirectly compromised given the kind of links that it has? Are all the reports of the USCIRF a result of lobbying? And we've seen the links that this group has to different groups that are innately anti-India. Were anti-India reports crafted for a price? Was there lobbying? Was money paid? Is there a large global web of organizations that are continuously working towards an anti-India narrative? We don't have a doubt that there could be, but I think what we've shown today makes that all the more obvious, given the times that we live in. Taking a short break, I request all of our panelists and Abhishek stay with us. Taking a break, back with that full report and the breaking news reactions that we are getting to it.